From the News Channel 5 Network, this is Inside Politics.
Hello, everyone. I'm News Channel 5's political analyst, Pat Nolan. Welcome to Inside Politics. The 110th Tennessee General Assembly began its second session of work this past week here in Nashville. There doesn't seem to be a dominant issue coming up this time, but you can be sure lawmakers will find plenty of things to debate and argue about over the next couple of months. To take an in-depth look of what to expect in this session, we have as our guest today on Inside Politics the Speaker of the State Senate, Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally. Governor McNally, thank you so much for coming in.
Glad to be here, Pat. Thank you.
So what are your top priorities personally this year to see that the Senate and the House get passed, outside of obviously passing the budget, which is the only thing the legislature is really required to do by law every year?
That is. And of course, that's a monumental task. And Bo Watson, who's our finance chairman, will do well in presenting that and handling that. But probably the attacking the opiate problem, I think, is certainly one of the top priorities that we have. Also, helping Tennessee develop economically, we've done very well, and continuing that trend in the future, I think, is important.
On the opioid issue, what specifically would you like to see the state do more of? And obviously, we're talking about some money, probably in most cases, to do any kind of programs.
Right. There's probably three main parts to it: enforcement and increasing the number of TBI agents, having like tiger teams or special teams that go in and where gangs are associated with dealing with drugs, interdict in that manner. Then certainly the education portion and the treatment portion.
One other issue that comes up in the opioid area is there's some people in the legislature who believe if we had medical marijuana availability in the state, it would help because it would give an option for something besides using opioid pills for pain medication. What do you think? Are you supportive of the bill that Senator Dickerson has from here in Nashville that would allow medical marijuana use in Tennessee?
Well, I like Senator Dickerson, and he's a good friend, but I would not support that.
You see it as encouraging a gateway drug.
Right. And really, the first thing that has to happen, I believe, is the federal government has to move it from a Schedule I classification down to a lower schedule or a non-schedule.
But other states have medical marijuana, and the feds haven't changed their rules on that. And I'm not talking about recreational marijuana, I'm talking about medicinal.
And I think there's going to be some problems with that. I think the General Sessions is looking into that issue currently, and it puts the state at danger. It also puts some of the people, like banking, they can't really take their money to the bank. They have to use other forms of keeping their money and things. So it's a real problem.
Second sessions are usually briefer than first sessions because it's an election year. Members want to get out and run for re-election. Others are running for other offices. So do you see getting out, as the legislature has done in recent years, in April, maybe in early April this year?
Pat, I think you're right. I think probably the first or second week in April, if all things go well, I think we'll be finished up.
You having to make some changes because some members of the committee, members of your body have already left for other jobs. In some cases, the Trump administration, some have been appointed to be U.S. attorneys. You've got one pending that perhaps will be a federal judge. You've had to make some committee changes. Is that one of the more difficult parts of your job, making those committee appointments, and is it difficult?
It is. You want to make sure the right people are placed in the right slots, and the individuals that we've had leave, two of those individuals have had very good positions. The Speaker Pro Tem, and also Senator Overby was Vice Chair of Judiciary and Vice Chair of Finance. So it was difficult to fill those positions, but we feel like that we have a good members that we can bring up and bring into those positions without any loss of institutional knowledge or time.
Now, an issue that's coming back up, at least the Democrats want to bring it back up, is to have Tennessee take a look at going back and passing the governor's plan that failed in the legislature a couple of years ago to have Insure Tennessee to increase health care coverage, particularly with, I think now, as many as 10 rural hospitals closing in the state. The Republicans haven't showed much interest in that. The governor hasn't talked about bringing it back, but there is one respected Republican representative who is having one of these hospitals closed in his district. I think it's Steve McDaniel, who said he thinks the legislature made a mistake not passing Insure Tennessee. What do you say?
I do not think they made a mistake. I think the first thing that we have to do is that there's probably a number of things that we might be able to do through the waiver, and that would be
through TennCare.
Yeah, co-pays, deductibles, work requirements, things like that in the waiver. And then if there are savings, to the extent there are savings, then we could possibly use those savings to expand the program.
In the area of the opioid epidemic, a couple of major cities, Nashville and Memphis, and some counties are getting into lawsuits against opioid manufacturers. This is also something the Attorney General of the state is looking at. Do you think the legislature ought to encourage the Attorney General to get involved in those lawsuits?
I think he is, and I think they're looking at different possibilities with the major manufacturers. Some of the manufacturers have either gone out of the business already or are not in good financial condition. But certainly the manufacturers, as well as some of the distributors, have a lot to blame in the opiate crisis that Tennessee faces.
Something that just came up this week: the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals on the federal courts has ruled in favor of the constitutional amendment that voters passed in 2014 that takes away any right to an abortion under the state constitution. That has kind of held, until that was determined by the courts that the vote was legal and properly counted, that had held the legislature back from taking any actions, particularly to limit abortion, except for, I think, a 48-hour waiting period. Do you see the legislature now taking additional steps in that area, and what areas do you think might be limited?
Well, I think the ruling was really on the process that the state went through, and I think then we'll probably end up with a suit on the, with the exception of the 48-hour waiting period, which has been upheld in other states. Some of the other things that had come up, some of the other parts of the legislation would be looking at those being challenged in court, I think.
Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally is our guest on Inside Politics. We're talking about what may be coming up in the next couple of months as the 110th General Assembly is back in session here in Nashville and should be here until sometime in the spring. Back to continue our conversation with the Lieutenant Governor after the spring.